Hello, Fowler St. Clair community. Today I want to talk to you about iBuyers, which has become a common trend in our real estate industry. iBuyers are companies that will buy homes for cash without those homes even going on the market. Common iBuyers are Open Door, OfferPad. It's my understanding that Zillow may be jumping into the marketplace as an iBuyer in the not so near distant future. There are a number of advantages to selling a home to iBuyers. These advantages include not having to stage the property, not having to maintain the property in a showing condition, not having buyers coming in and out of the property, not having to worry about scheduling those showings with the buyers. iBuyers can also be flexible with closing dates. So you need to move quickly because you've been relocated. Well, an iBuyer can generally close escrow fairly quick because they're purchasing the property in cash. Or let's say that you're buying a new build and you don't know exactly when the builder will complete your home. But you want to know that your existing home is sold. You can work with an iBuyer to schedule the closing date of your existing home to correspond with the closing of your new home. My wife and I, a number of years ago, had a situation where we were having a home built, and we tried to schedule the closing of our existing home with the closing of our new home, and we thought we were about a couple of weeks apart. Long story short, those 2 weeks turned into months, and we were basically homeless for about 3 months, and we spent a lot of time at friends and family. We house sat, we even stayed at hotels. And I wish at that time, after those 3 months went by, that I had in fact found a buyer that was flexible on the closing date, and that we could have better coordinated our closing with the closing on our new home. While there are a number of advantages to selling a home to iBuyers, there's also some concerns that I have. Primarily, I'm concerned with who's representing the seller in the transaction. iBuyers employ licensed real estate agents. Those licensed real estate agents are the ones that are drafting the contract, drafting the clauses for the contract, negotiating the contract, and making sure that the iBuyer is represented in the transaction. These licensed real estate agents do not represent the seller. Additionally, iBuyers have attorneys on retainer, or they even employ in-house counsel who are reviewing the clauses that are being used in the purchase contract. They're reviewing the purchase contracts to make sure that they are acceptable, and they're reviewing any other documents that are being provided to the seller as part of the transaction. And what are those attorneys doing? They're making sure that the iBuyer is protected in the transaction. Finally, the iBuyer is generally the one who's going to choose the title company. This is the escrow agent who will be closing the transaction. The title company chosen by the iBuyer is generally one that the iBuyer uses on a regular basis and for whom the iBuyer has a relationship. Once again, where's the representation and protection for the seller in the transaction? Well, sometimes the seller can be represented or is represented by a licensed real estate agent in the transaction, and in that circumstance, that's good. And I would encourage a seller to be represented by a licensed agent in the transaction. But what about the circumstance where the seller sees the advertising of an iBuyer, whether on a billboard, on TV, the radio, and they decide to contact the iBuyer and to enter into the transaction without a licensed real estate agent? Well, in that circumstance, I recommend that the seller seek legal advice before they enter into the purchase contract with the iBuyer or sign any documents with the iBuyer. What that would look like would be that the seller would obtain drafts of the purchase contract and any other documents that they're being requested to sign, and they will present those to an attorney, and that attorney would then review those documents and then have a meeting with the client, whether by phone, in person, or even video conference through Skype or some other service, and go over the purchase contract and other documents with the seller and make sure that the seller fully understands and appreciates the legal ramifications of the documents that they're being asked to sign, and also to look at the documents to make sure that there's nothing in there out of the ordinary or that would be overly detrimental to the seller in the transaction. If a seller does that, it would alleviate my concerns with the iBuyer transaction, and I believe that the sellers will find a major benefit. If nothing else, they will sleep better at night knowing that they have someone on their side reviewing the documents and making sure that they are in fact protected and that they understand what they're signing. Please feel free to contact our office if we can be of assistance in any way in an iBuyer transaction, or if you would like to schedule a consultation with us. Thank you for listening today. I hope you've learned something about iBuyers. I'm St. Clair, your title and probate attorney.